Welcome to the Eco-Scientist Podcast. My name is Amalya and I am your host. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about all things science, conservation, and climate. I'm going to dive deep into the ethics, the emotions, and the facts to bring you all the information you need to survive in the world of STEM. So sit down, chill out, and let's get into it. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Eco-Scientist Podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about how you can reduce your impacts on this planet that we call Earth, as well as all of the organisms that survive on its surface. These tips are all pretty simple strategies that won't cost you anything long term, and most of these things are things that you can implement in your life right now. But before we get into that, I'd like to give you guys some updates. So, if you tune into my Instagram stories, you might have seen me mention that I didn't release an episode last week because I was worried that with the time that I had given myself that I wouldn't be able to do the topic any justice. And I also did a poll asking you guys if you preferred short and sweet episodes or if you'd like me to talk a lot more in depth for a longer amount of time. Now, you all voted for shorter and sweeter episodes, and then I also realized that the topics that I was wanting to cover are things that I could talk about for days. So instead of talking about it all in one episode, which would be really overwhelming and not explain things properly, I'm going to turn this one huge topic into a mini series with lots of small episodes. So what is this topic, you may ask? Well, we're going to be talking about how we can combine different fields within STEM as well as fields outside of STEM in order to specialize in a field that you might be interested in, or to advance your career or advocate for change and be innovative. And we're going to do this in a series of interviews. So I'm going to be talking to bioengineers and ask them how they combine biology and engineering to create innovative solutions to problems that we might be facing as a human race. We're going to talk to geologists and humanitarians and chemists and even artists and people that specialize in areas that you may not have thought would be related to science, but they really are in our current world. You see, there are thousands of career paths and opportunities within STEM that combine topics that are wildly unrelated in order to create jobs that are in high demand. In today's world, we have to be innovative and we have to stand out and be multidisciplinary, but we also have to be specialized at the same time. And in order to really excel and to climb to the top of the ladder as a young professional, you need to know all these things. So in this mini series, I'm going to be speaking to people who are highly specialized in areas that you might be surprised go hand in hand. And we're going to find out together how they did it and what innovation they're creating throughout their career. It's going to be a really epic mini-series with lots of short, bite-sized episodes, and each episode will have something so different from the last that it doesn't matter what you do or who you are, there's going to be something in it for you. So that's kind of why there was no episode last week. I just came up with this idea and then I went to this networking event over the weekend before that, and I realized how in depth I could take these things, and I just really want to do it justice. So thank you guys so much for bearing with me there, and I just cannot wait to share it all with you in the next few months. The next few weeks of posting will also be a little bit more sporadic episode-wise, but I will explain that at the end of this episode. Until then, I do have one more announcement though. For those of you who listened to my episode about climate change anxiety, you would probably be able to gauge that this is something I'm really passionate about, and I am very, very happy to announce that I will be involved in an upcoming online chat with Headspace Australia, where we will be talking about climate change anxiety. I'll be participating in the chat as an expert alongside Jess from Lonely Conservationists, as well as clinicians from Headspace Australia. The chat will be on the 23rd of July from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Melbourne time, and we're going to be talking about climate change anxiety and different things that you can do to help alleviate the stress. Now, this online chat is for 12 to 15-year-olds here in Australia. However, Headspace does have plenty of resources for adults, so I urge you guys to check those out if you're feeling the pressures of climate change anxiety throughout your life and maybe you're not 12 to 15 years old. However, if you are 12 to 15 years old and you have ever struggled with climate change anxiety, feel free to jump onto the online chat. It's going to be live on July 23rd from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Melbourne time. And if you're an adult that knows a passionate young teen that might benefit from this chat, feel free to send them this way because we're going to have a lot of helpful tips and advice for them. All of the information in the chat that we're going to be having, wow, that was so hard to say, my cat, guys. Okay, all of the information for the chat will be in the show notes for this episode, and I will also include details on the Eco Scientist blog and the Instagram page so that you can find it all easily. I'm so sorry if you guys hear any random sounds and all that kind of stuff throughout this episode. I've left the studio door open because my cat is being very loud at the moment, and I figured that her running around would be a little bit easier to deal with than constant scream meowing in the background. So if you hear her meowing or lots of jumping and prancing around, it's my cat, and I apologize for her. So with that, let's get into today's topic, which is different ways that you can reduce your impact on the planet in your day-to-day life. So let's just start real quickly with why you should be making an effort to reduce your impact. Now, we all know this whole thing about having 12 years to save the planet, and we're producing too many greenhouse gases, and the ocean's full of plastic, and species are going extinct, etc., etc. And it's pretty doom and gloom. So, of course, there are so many reasons that you should be thinking about reducing your impact on the environment. But for me, one of my favorite reasons why you should try and reduce your impact on the environment is because it makes us feel better as humans. And if you have depression or anxiety, or maybe you're suffering from climate anxiety, chances are that maybe you feel a little worthless or like you don't matter, or maybe you feel like you aren't contributing anything to the world. But the truth is that you can, and you have so much power to incite change, and this is just one of the tiny little ways that you can do it. And research shows that when we do good for other people and when we do good for the planet, it makes us feel good. It's absolutely no secret, and I'm sure you felt it before. It feels really good to help other people and to know that you're important and making a difference. For me personally, I live for that feeling. I love helping people, I love educating people, and I need to feel like I'm contributing to the world in some way in order to be happy. And that's just part of my personality, but I've realized that on some level, it's also part of being human. We all need to feel connected and loved and important, and you can achieve that in your day-to-day life by making small changes to help others and to help the environment, and this can make a huge difference to your mental health. And also for me, having a why is a great way to stay motivated. If you don't know why you're doing something, then you're probably not going to stick at it. Being like, I use a keep cup because everybody else does and it's trendy is not a good enough reason that's going to make you use the keep cup every single day. And using the keep cup won't make you feel any different to using a plastic or a paper cup. But if you have a solid why to all of the things that you're doing in life, even if it's on an environmental level, that's when you start feeling purpose, and that's when you'll start feeling happiness in the tiny little things. And this topic, for me and the rest of the team at Headspace, is something that we're going to be covering a lot in our online chat next week. So if you want to talk more about this, about your why, you'll get the chance to have a conversation with me, Jess from Lonely Conservationist, and the rest of the team. So feel free to jump on there. So now that we have our whys, let's talk about how you can reduce your impact. So step one for me, which I'm sure you've all heard a lot about before, is to try zero or low waste and switch out your single-use plastics for reusable items. Now, I have a whole post on the Eco Scientist blog explaining what single-use plastics are, what they're made of, and exactly why they're bad for the environment. So if you are interested in finding out more, that post will be linked in the show notes below for you guys. But there's a few things that I'm sure you've seen that I think are staples. And for me, I carry these around all the time, and they've really helped me reduce the amount of plastic I'm using in my life. So these things include a keep cup for coffee. I have bamboo cutlery. It's a fork, a knife, spoon, chopsticks, and a straw with a cleaning brush. And it all folds into this little foldable linen carry case, which I got as a gift from my best friend, which is actually an amazing gift. For the ladies out there, also looking into reusable feminine hygiene products, which I will talk a bit more about in a future episode. That's another great way to reduce your impact. Switching out a normal water bottle, keep an empty water bottle on you. You can fill it up instead of buying a plastic one. There's lots and lots of different things that you can carry around with you. You can leave them in your car or in a bag, or just have on hand so that you're using less plastic in your day-to-day life. Someone I went to high school with posted a suggestion on her Instagram story the other day about reusable products. And she says that she has a keep cup, reusable cutlery, a glass takeaway container, and a few other things that permanently live in her work bag, so that pretty much whenever she's out before and after work, she is always prepared without having to think about it. And I cannot recommend this enough. I keep most of my reusables in the car because I'm always driving, but if I'm packing things in a backpack, it's probably going to be a lot more practical. So this girl's name is Naomi, and she shares a lot of tips on zero waste living, and her stories are full of so much positivity. She talks about human rights and discusses different experiences that she's had, as well as body image and veganism and all this other really good environmental stuff. So if you're taking my advice from episode 3 and you're clearing out all of the negativity from your Instagram feed, and you need some more positive people to follow that aren't just huge influencers that are in it for the money, definitely give Naomi a follow. She's shared so many good tips on zero waste, and she's so inspirational. Her handle will be linked in the show notes below, so if you want to check that out on Instagram, feel free. Also, check out the zero waste hashtag on social media, and you will find plenty of other cool people like Naomi who will inspire you to make this change. So next, another thing that you can do to reduce your impact on the environment on a day-to-day basis is to think about your transportation methods. So if you work in the city and your workplace is not too far from a train or a bus station, why not use public transport to get to and from work instead of driving a car? You'll be contributing far less emissions than you would if you drove a car by yourself. You also get time to do more things like reading or writing or working because you don't have to focus on the road, and you'll save money on fuel and parking if you pay for it, and you might find it a lot less stressful, especially when it comes to city driving. I cannot handle that stuff. So even if you don't live close to a train or a bus station, you could always drive to the station and take public transport the rest of the way. And this might not be as efficient as walking to the station, but it's still far better than driving all of the way to work, so it's definitely something to consider. There are also a few other things that you can do to reduce your emissions via transportation. So for example, if you're lucky enough to live a 5-minute drive from a cafe or somewhere that you go regularly for food or coffee like I am, instead of driving 5 minutes to get a coffee on a Saturday morning, what if you walked or rode a bike instead? This is something that my fiance and I have started doing, and it has made a huge difference to our relationship. We both get up and walk about 20 minutes to the cafe, we sit in, we drink our coffees, and then we walk the 20 minutes back. All up, it's about an hour round trip, and there is so much good to it. While we're walking, we have a total of 40 minutes to talk to each other, uninterrupted by other people or by housework or paperwork or actual jobs, because I work a bit from home. So it's purely us time and nothing else. And then we're getting 45 minutes of really light exercise for the day, which is great on days that we would have done nothing. So our twice-a-week coffee trip has turned into something that's not only less harmful for the planet because we aren't driving our cars there, it's also better for our bodies because we're moving, better for our minds because we're outside, and better for our relationship because we get to spend that quality time together to talk. So if you have a partner or a friend that you get coffee with, maybe try switching it up and walking instead. And if you have a dog, I don't think there's a better way to get in a walk with your furry friend at all. So in addition to these things, there's some other things that you can do to help reduce your impact on the planet. One of my favorite things to do is to vote with my money. Now, this is a concept that a lot of people aren't really as familiar with as they should be. But basically, when you spend your money on a product, you support the business and the people who created the product. So when you buy things, if you buy things that are local and not wrapped in plastic or choose ethical fashion, your money is going to causes that are far better for the environment and for the planet than if you spent your money elsewhere. So for example, if you buy things that are natural and biodegradable, then you're not exploiting industries or producing plastic because your money's not paying for those things. If you are buying fast fashion from a brand that sells their clothing items for, say, $3, your money is going towards the clothing item and the business, but also towards exploiting the workers or to the pollution that goes into the environment. And there's so much more to it, which I'll talk about in a little more. The other thing you can do is buying locally. It means that there's less transportation emissions when you're moving produce from one place to another, buying seasonal fruit instead of things that have been frozen. All these things can add up to create such a huge impact. And if you just think about them for a little bit longer than usual, you might realize that it's actually really easy to be more sustainable just with the things that you buy in your groceries. I saw the other day online that someone had chosen loose strawberries instead of ones in plastic containers at her local produce store. She then posted it on Instagram, telling everyone in her area that there were loose strawberries that were completely zero waste, and asked everyone to go down to the store and to support the business. Now they have crap loads of strawberries that aren't in plastic containers because they had enough demand for it. And that's what this is about. It's all supply and demand. So if you're asking for products that are unsustainable, companies will keep making products that are unsustainable. But if you're asking for products that are sustainable and zero waste and ethical, there'll be more demand for it, and that demand will create more jobs, more sustainable industries, and overall it's just so much better for the environment and for the rest of the planet. And fast fashion is actually one of the most unsustainable industries on the planet. And I read recently that if 1 million women bought their next item of clothing secondhand instead of brand new, we would save 6 million kilograms of carbon from entering the atmosphere. That is a phenomenal amount. And you can still look amazing by shopping ethically. So on my Instagram, I've just added a new highlight where I'm going to be sharing my ethical outfits with you guys so you can see how easy and how cheap it can be to dress sustainably. My Instagram, as per usual, will be linked in the show notes below, or you can just search at Eco-Scientist on the gram if you would like. But in addition to that, there are plenty of influencers out there that are sharing their ethical wardrobes and information on ethical fashion that are far more fashionable than I am. My personal favorite is Kristen Leo. She has a YouTube channel that is so informative and so brilliant to watch. Her videos are absolutely pure art and I just love her. So I'll also link her Instagram and her YouTube in the show notes below for you guys. Also, if you have the time and you need something to watch tonight, I definitely recommend checking out the True Cost documentary on Netflix. It covers all of the costs to the environment and to humanity of fashion, and it's just so informative. The documentary really opened my eyes so much, and I feel so much better about my fashion choices now than I ever have before. So definitely check that one out. And just like everything else I've mentioned previously, the True Cost documentary will also be linked in the show notes. So basically, just think about where you're spending your money. Think about the industries that you're supporting, the products that you're asking for every time you pay for them. And you might realize that it's really, really easy to choose something that's a little bit more sustainable that usually won't cost you much more in the first place. So the next thing that you can do is you can organize or participate in plastic cleanups in your local community. So there are hundreds of organizations who conduct plastic cleanups worldwide. Here in Australia, you can find events hosted by Sea Shepherd, the Ocean Crusaders, Ocean Watch, Clean Up Australia, Surf Riders, and so many more. So if you want, you can just get on Facebook and check out like the events section to find events near you. And if there's no cleanups near you, you could just organize one. With social media at our fingertips, it's so easy to do, and it's a great way to kickstart a conversation and a movement in your local area, especially if it's not something that's happening already. So if you'd like to organize a cleanup but don't know where to start, feel free to contact me via Instagram or email because I would love to help you guys out. I'd love to see more beach cleanups and any sort of really cleanups going on. I've seen people do cleanups along the side of the highways. Here in Australia, we also have Clean Up Australia Day, which is global. So even out in the desert, we're finding plastic and we need to clean it up. So that's definitely one way that you can contribute and you can help out. Next, you can be conscious of your water usage. So I know I'm kind of getting into a territory that might be a bit boring here, guys, but Did you know that Australians use more water per capita than anywhere else in the world, with the average Australian using 340 litres of water a day? So I feel like me saying we should be more conscious of our water usage is probably not something that should be left out of this talk, because 340 litres a day is just ridiculous. And it seems like a lot, which it is, but when you think about it and take into account all of the contributing factors, 340 litres a day for an Australian kind of makes sense. Now, I'm not saying it's not ridiculous, but I'm just saying it adds up very, very quickly. So, for example, your shower uses a lot of water, and then you have things like washing machines, dishes, the water you drink. If you eat meat, there are thousands of litres of water that go into the production and cleaning of the meat. There's also the water that goes into crops to grow and the gardens if you water your own garden as well. And we just use so much water here. And if you're really conscious of it, you'll start to realize just how much water we use and how unnecessary a lot of it is. So you can do things like taking shorter showers. So I know you've probably heard this before, especially if you're any older than 20 and live in Australia. You would have seen those 4-minute shower timer ads on TV as a kid. But I think the problem that people have with this whole 4-minute thing is that they don't really shower efficiently. Like 4 minutes seems like a really short amount of time, especially if you're a woman who might be washing her hair and shaving her legs. But you can shower more efficiently by doing things in a different order. So for example, if you're washing your hair, maybe shampoo and condition first, and then while the conditioner is soaking into your hair, do everything else, like rinse the conditioner out at the end. That way your hair gets a mini treatment every time you wash it, not just a quick wash, and you get everything done faster while you're waiting for the conditioner to set. And I always thought that this was common sense, but I was just so surprised to find out that most people don't do this. And it's just such a waste of water to just stand there for like 3 minutes while you wait for conditioner to set in your hair. So definitely look into how efficiently you're doing things. If you live out of home, doing things like this will save you heaps on water and electricity bills as well. And it's just so much better for the planet than just standing under the water for half an hour or more. There's also other basic things that I'm sure you've all heard of before when it comes to water usage, like not leaving the tap running while you brush your teeth, etc. But there's this one thing that I do in the kitchen to save water and power that my partner was really intrigued by when he saw me do it, and I just think it's so funny. But basically, say that I'm cooking pasta, and if you put hot water into the pot from the tap, it won't take so long to boil, which uses less energy and also means that you have dinner faster. But you have to wait for the water from the tap to get hot, which wastes water because then it just goes down the sink. So what I do is I get the pot ready and then I'll turn on the tap as hot as it goes. But the water in my house takes a couple of minutes to get really hot because the kitchen is on the other side of the house from where our water heater is. So while the water is running and slowly warming up, I just hand wash all of my dishes that I've used to prepare the rest of dinner. And then once the water is hot, I fill up the pot to cook the pasta. So then I have clean dishes, which I don't have to worry about later on. I didn't waste water because I would have had to wash the dishes anyway, and my pasta is going to be ready a lot quicker. And there's just so many things like this that I do to save on bills and to save resources. And it just makes life easier and more convenient and more energy and time efficient, which for as a human is pretty good for me. Being as busy as I am, I will optimize literally any process in my house at any chance I get. I know I'm crazy, but I do not care. And also, another thing to think about in the sense of, washing dishes and clothes and all those sorts of things. If you're in need of new appliances for your home, check the water and the energy usage on the item before you buy it. So that way you're picking appliances that will be a little bit more sustainable. And to add on to that, if you're lucky enough to own your own home, consider making the switch to renewable energy such as solar. So here in Australia, the initial cost to install a solar power system in your home is quite expensive. However, most families are saving more than $400 on their power bills in the first quarter, with some people saving more than $2,000 a year. I've seen basic solar units advertised for less than $4,000 here within Australia. So that's a base model at maximum savings, and you've just paid off your solar in 2 years just from the savings that you would make on your electricity bill. And then after that, it's pure savings, money in your back pocket at no cost to the environment. And obviously there's going to be different costs depending on your needs. A bigger house with a bigger family will need a bigger system, so the cost might vary. And of course you also have to account for installation fees. However, solar power really is such a huge investment, and I cannot recommend it enough if that's something that is attainable to you. Plus, there's heaps of new technology available at the moment, such as rechargeable solar batteries that make solar energy far more efficient and far more accessible and just so much better in every sense than using fossil fuels. So if you are privileged enough to own your own home, definitely look into solar power or any other renewable energy source that might be available to you. And lastly, if you can't do any of these other things, if everything is way too far out of your reach, maybe you're really young, you don't have the money to invest in reusables and you're just trying to get by, you can still talk to people and educate others. The amount of people that I've spoken to that have been completely oblivious to a lot of the stuff that I've just spoken about just blows me away. But in reality, it's easy not to think about these things. If you're overworked and stressed out, you don't want to think about how ethical your fashion choices are in the morning. You just want to put on the easiest and sometimes most affordable outfit and just go to work, because you're probably already rushing, and thinking about sustainable fashion is just another thing to add to the to-do list. And it's easy to disregard unsustainable appliances when you just need something to get you by. But more often than not, the things that we settle for to get us by turn into permanent things for us without us even realizing. So putting in a little bit of extra effort at the start when you're making choices about your clothes in the store, when you're making choices about the appliances that you buy from your home, can make such a huge difference. And if you can't do those things, talk about them. Let other people know that they can make a difference by making better choices. And there's other things like calling out people for using too much plastic. So say, for example, you're buying sushi and it's already in a plastic container and the girl at the counter goes to put it in a plastic bag. You know that you could carry it without one. Just say no. It's okay to say no to things and to tell people why you're saying no, because chances are that they might not have even thought about it. 9 times out of 10, people are just doing things robotically and they don't even think about what they're doing and the extent of damage that it might be causing to others or to the environment. People get caught up in a routine of what's normal, and as a result, we stop questioning things. But we're in a time where we should be questioning things a lot more than we are. We should be questioning other people, calling them out, and having conversations with the intent of bettering the world around us. Not to gloat or anything like that, but to help. And if you talk to people with pure intentions, people will be far more receptive to you, and you will start seeing so much more change happening around you. And if you're too shy to talk to people, that's okay too. Share things on social media and vote with your money, like I said, and focus on you just setting an example for others. In those cases, you don't even have to say anything. People will just see what you're doing and some will follow. So those are 5 tips that I have for you guys today on reducing your impact. Obviously, there's so much more you can do, and I'm going to talk a lot more in depth about these individual things. If you do want to read a little bit more though, I do have a pretty basic post about this topic on the Eco Scientist blog, and I also talk about my zero waste favorites, so that one will be linked in the show notes. And I definitely recommend jumping on Instagram, looking up those people I suggested, and go onto Netflix and look at the True Cost documentary, because it is just a life changer. Also, I wanted to give you guys a heads up that I am currently in the process of moving house. So unfortunately, the episodes over the next couple of weeks are going to be a little bit sporadic and probably not as high quality as the first couple, as this one has not been too great either. I don't exactly have a posting schedule at the moment, because once I pack up this studio space, it's going to be about a week before I can record again. Plus, I still have to wait for getting my internet connected at my new place and all that other fun moving stuff. So I'm not exactly sure when the next episode will be out. And that's why I've been a little bit further behind schedule with the episodes, and I'm not going to lie, the next few weeks are not going to be full of a lot of great content. But it's going to get really good after I've settled into the new place, and I cannot wait to share all of these new projects with you guys. However, if you have any questions at the moment, I'll still be on social media, so feel free to message me, and I'll be updating you guys on Instagram about when the next episodes will be uploaded, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So with that, I'm going to end this episode right here. I hope these tips have helped you out at least a little bit, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys in the next episode. So that was episode 5 of the Eco Scientist podcast. I'm Amalia Valley, wishing you a great day or a great night wherever you are.